Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got the privilege to interview Gino Wickman. Gino, how you doing?
Great. How are you, Brett?
I am wonderful, man. I got to hold a couple things up here. You've seen these a time or 1,000.
Once or twice.
For those that are listening, I am holding up his two of his books. He's got numerous books, but Entrepreneurial Leap, phenomenal book, and Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. Phenomenal. So I read Traction last year and I read Entrepreneurial Leap this year. And man, those are phenomenal books. So congrats.
Thank you, my friend. That means a lot. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're coming to us from Michigan. I'm coming from St. Louis. And so I guess, are you a Tigers fan?
I'm not a big baseball guy. So
Okay.
Lions, embarrassingly, I'm a big football fan. So the Lions are my team.
Well, I had to get a jab back. And somebody I had on yesterday, they were Red Sox fans, and they got us twice in the World Series. And I was just going to, maybe bring up the 06 World Series. I'm a huge Cardinal fan. So anyway, we'll talk about that on some other podcasts. But every show, Gino, I like to start off with kind of what's made you the man you are today. Obviously, you don't wake up and have this uber successful business and write books and do all this kind of stuff that you've done and had a great career. But maybe give us the backstory. What's made Gino the man you are today?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to word that, so that what it prompts for me is starting off by saying I moved 9 times by the time I was 10. So wow. That's got to have an effect on a human being. But I had a very entrepreneurial father. And so, I think there's something in that many moves. And then having an entrepreneurial father and being around that has certainly made me who I am. Living a wild and crazy entrepreneur's life prior to taking my leap, having ADHD, OCD, all of the psychological disorders that go along with being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Barely graduated high school with a solid 2.3 grade point average. Having fun was a lot more interesting to me than book learning. Not going to college. I just wanted to go make money. Academics were not for me. My friends all went off to college and I said, I'm going to make money. And, found myself taking over a family business at the age of 25 years old. And so this amazing run in my 20s. And so I took over a family business. I worked my way up from the bottom up. And after a bunch of kind of entrepreneurial endeavors leading up to that, and found myself taking over a family business that was in need of a turnaround. And I really felt like I could do it. I felt like I could save it. And so in about 3 years, I turned that company around, armed with 2 incredible mentors, my dad, Floyd Wickman, and an incredible businessman by the name of Sam Cupp. And so they both took me under their wing, taught me everything they knew. I was also just a fanatic for learning. And so turned that business around, ran it for 7 years. We successfully sold it. There were 3 of us that owned the business, a third, and a third, my dad and another partner of ours at Escobar. And then I discovered my calling and why I'm on the face of this earth, and that's to help entrepreneurs. And so upon selling the business, I set off to do just that. And so for the last 20 plus years, I've built a system called EOS and wrote a book, Traction, which you held up there, and 5 other books that go along with it. And we now have 100,000 companies running on the system that I created, an organization with 375 people we call EOS implementers that help them do that. I sold that business 2.5 years ago. I still own 12.5%. I still own all the books. I'm still the EOS guy. Half my working time is still EOS because I still have clients, which is my number one love. But the other 50% of my time is what I decided to do at age 50. One of the reasons I sold the business, and that's to now go to the front end of the entrepreneurial journey and help entrepreneurs in the making. Anyone out there that thinks they might be an entrepreneur, help them greatly increase their odds of becoming an entrepreneur. And so I wrote a book called Entrepreneurial Leap, the other one that you wrote, and that's what I'm spending the next 10 years doing. It's a passion project, helping to find these wonderful people and help them discover what they are and get a huge jump start. The goal is to impact 1 million entrepreneurs in the making over the next 10 years. So those are all the things that made me who I am as we sit here at this moment.
Wow. Well, that's like maybe we could have 4 or 5 podcasts and dive into that. I think
so.
Yeah. So one thing that stuck out to me when you were talking about all that great stuff is when you said you found your passion kind of as you were building this business or maybe as you sold the business. Was that something that you knew, okay, you sell it today and then tomorrow you knew, bam, I want to go do this for entrepreneurs? Or was it like, hey, I got to spend some time. I've talked to plenty of people that have sold businesses and they went off in the woods, for 2 years and trying to find themselves. Where were you at on that journey?
Yeah, well, to me, I'm a much more of a planner than that. So, having watched many of my clients sell their businesses, I saw a lot of the mistakes that are made by selling your business and then trying to figure it out, or selling your business and remain employed by the new owners and being in hell for 2 to 3 years. So knowing all of that, I was lucky enough to know exactly what I was going to do the day I sold, to know that I was not going to be involved for one freaking second in that business the day after I sold. I put an amazing team in place with my partner, Don Tinney, that was running that business already long before we sold. So I knew all of the mistakes and frankly, knock on wood, thank goodness, avoided them all.
Yeah. Before we talk about those successes, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen? And me being a wealth management advisor and owning a wealth management firm, we've seen them as well. But what are some of the mistakes if you have that person right now that's driving in their car, they're listening to this, or thinking about selling their company and getting out? What's maybe the one or two things that you say, oh my gosh, don't do that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one is read Bo Burlington's book, Finish Big. He does a really nice job of just getting you to think and process selling your business. Should you even sell your business? Because that's the really important first decision is, should you really sell your business? And so the first thing I would share in the way of a tactical, practical thing is, first and foremost, make sure the company runs without you. So ultimately, if you're that entrepreneur, I call that a visionary. If you're that visionary that built the organization.
Which we like that name, by the way, because my firm is called Visionary Wealth Advisors.
I love it. We're meant to be together. And so my book, Rocket Fuel, teaches that whole visionary integrator concept that I'm talking about. I wrote that with my co-author, Mark Winters, who would probably be great for your podcast. Keep that in mind. But anyway, long story short is elevate yourself to that visionary role, build an amazing leadership team that can run that company in your absence. The test is, can you leave tomorrow for 30 days and come back and everything still be running the same? That's the litmus test. And so that's where we got the business. And so there's a great team in place. At that point, you're then going to go, what do I want to do? Because this is a pretty damn good life. This thing runs itself. Do I want to keep it or do I want to sell it? And in most cases, you should decide to keep it because you got a pretty good thing going. But if you decide to sell, as I did, for 8 reasons, that was the first mistake I avoided. Was the entrepreneur that decides I'm going to sell sells, and they're still the one holding that whole thing together, which means an employment agreement, which means you've got to work for that company for the next 3 years. If you're a true entrepreneur, you are incapable of working for someone. And so it enables you to sell it and move on to the next thing.
That's right.
That would be number one. And then number two, as we kind of talked about already, know exactly what you're going to do the day you sell. So the mistake there is watching these painfully lost entrepreneurs that just sold their baby. They've literally put the last 10, 20, 30 years of their life into this. It's all they know. And now all of a sudden they know nothing because they just sold the damn thing and somebody else is in charge. And so literally they go into a deep depression.
Yep.
So those would be the two biggies I would strongly suggest.
And I love the fact that you know what you've been put on this earth to do, right? Because a lot of people, they may live their whole life and not know. So if you're talking to this one person, right, that maybe listen to this, it's diving into this thing and saying, gosh, what do I want to do with my life? Do you have a process? You probably do.
Yeah.
How do we find our purpose? I'm so lucky to have found my purpose and know why I'm on this earth as well. But how can we help those that maybe not know exactly what they want to do find it?
Yeah. Well, I would suggest 2 things. First is to give my disclaimer so that you're not giving me too much credit. All I know how to do is help an entrepreneur have an amazing freaking life. Okay. That's all I know how to do. So I don't know how to help somebody become a police officer or a nurse or a doctor or a librarian. So let's keep my expertise in the right place. Okay.
All right.
So with that, let's pretend we're talking about entrepreneurs, but what I'm about to say, it applies to everyone, but I don't have experience helping a librarian discover they should become a librarian.
Yep.
So what I would, there's this exercise. And so in this new book, Entrepreneurial Leap, I believe everyone should discover their passion. Certainly that's in the in the context of an entrepreneur. But one of the many exercises I teach is, and I can't remember where I learned this, but I did this 15, 20 years ago, and it was so clarifying for me. So it's a 30-minute exercise. You go find your favorite quiet place. I did it sitting in a coffee shop, and you answer 3 questions. And so you're literally writing in a journal on a legal pad. Please write. Writing is very powerful. Yep. So first question you answer about yourself is you say, what are my 3 greatest successes, my 3 greatest accomplishments? Second question you answer is, what are my 3 greatest failures? And then the third question is where the answer is, and it is answering, what has life prepared me for? And so, you know, what we are, what we become, our passion, this thing, it's a lot of times it's based on our experiences. I am so obsessed about helping entrepreneurs and realize that light bulb moment because I helped my father as an entrepreneur. I was helping my young entrepreneurs organization brethren with their businesses. I just realized I have this knack, but I have it because I felt the pain that they felt. I experienced the pain that they felt, and I solved their pain, and I solved my pain. And so from that, you know, most of the time it's from a wound, it's from a past pain. That's where deep passion comes from. And so it's about looking back at those experiences, and you'll glean great insight. And worst case, if you have no experience, go get some.
That's right.
Go take a leap and try something, man. Go get your ass kicked, go fail a bunch of times, go do scary shit, and you'll develop a passion.
Yeah. I think you're so right. I mean, I think about my life. And so I was in a different financial firm before, and, you know, had a good life going. And what I always say is my income was going like this, going up, my satisfaction was going down because, you know, you like you said, it's hard to work for somebody else sometimes. And so, you know, that's why in our culture now, we want everybody to be their own boss and run their own deal and grow it as big as they want. And I think sometimes fear, though, don't you think, plays a role in some people's taking that leap, right? If I have to take the leap, there is certainly, hey, my wife was 8 months pregnant with our 4th child. We had just built a home, you know, had a building, all this stuff, right? Now I'm going to leave and start all over. Like, what are you thinking? Exactly. And I remember very clearly my wife saying, Brett, do you think this is the right time? And my response was, no, this is a terrible time. It's probably the worst time it could possibly happen. But it's what my heart was saying, right? So when you hear that story and fear, I mean, what kind of comes to mind there?
No, it prompts a lot of things. And so bear with me, because I want to start by creating kind of a bigger context and then a smaller context, and then answer your question, because I think it's so important it's in the right context. So we're talking about fear. And, you know, the first context is just that reminder that, you know, again, what I'm doing all day, every day is teaching entrepreneurs. That's the big context. And within that, you know, I can't help as I talk, I think about your listener right now, your audience out there. And, you know, maybe your audience out there isn't this entrepreneur in the making that this book is for, but it's more than that, because you have people in your lives that are entrepreneurs. If you're not, they are. You have, you know, your kids, your brothers, your neighbor, your friends. They're entrepreneurs in the making, and this can help them. And then there's also people in the audience that want to help and mentor entrepreneurs in the making. And so this is all great content to help them do that. So in that, the smaller context is what I'm teaching the world right now about these entrepreneurs in the making, and that to be a true entrepreneur, you have to have 6 essential traits that you're born with. They are visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, I'll pause on that one, and responsible. And so again, I said I wanted to start with this big context, and then we're going to come down to the point. Well, number 5 essential trait is called risk taker. And a true entrepreneur takes risks. They're comfortable taking risks. Not everyone is a risk taker. And so to this point about risk takers, there's just some people that should not take big risks. And if you lose your job in a pandemic, you might need to just go find another safe job, and there is no shame in that. But in a pandemic, in an 08, 09 Great Recession, in World War II. I could go back 1,000 years and I could,
Right.
every 10 years, something kicks us in the ass. That spawns tons of entrepreneurs. And so the risk takers that are displaced go take the risk you're talking about. But the nurse who's not a risk taker, who's an amazing freaking nurse that somehow got displaced, just needs to go find another great nursing job. And they're out there and they'll find it, or something in that same realm. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I hope I hit what you were asking.
No, you are. And I think to just keep diving down into that is, do you think you're born with that? Right? All these things, right? Are you born with it? Do you grow it? I mean,
yeah. So 100% yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'll start so that there's no gray area in what I'm about to say. Absolutely freaking yes. You're born with these 6 essential traits. And I love the debates, and maybe you're going to debate me, and I would love that. So, but here's, so I believe you're born with them. You cannot teach somebody to be an entrepreneur. So I think it's such a sin to take this person who's destined to be a police officer and say, I'm going to turn you into an entrepreneur. It's just, it's not fair. Right. So anyway, so you're born with these. And the one example I always love to give is, let's use responsible. Okay. That's the 6th essential trait. And let's talk about how you're either born a responsible person or you're not. And the example is, think about your brothers and sisters. Okay. So think about a family of 4 kids, okay, or 3 kids or 5 kids. How on earth can one brother take responsibility when something bad happens and the other brother blame the whole freaking world for all of their problems? In the same
raised in the same house.
In the same household, raised by the same parents, same everything, same lessons, same example. Listen, you either default to, in your soul, taking responsibility for shit that happens to you, or you blame the world. There are 2 types of people in the world, and you listening out there, you're one of those 2.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And don't you think some of this is you kind of showed signs of entrepreneurialism as a kid? I think back to my 7th and 8th grade days when I was selling candy out of my pockets, right? And making some coin. In fact, my mom just sent me a picture the other day of the lemon head container, right? They were storing stuff in. She's like, bring back memories. I'm like, yeah, one of my first businesses, selling lemon heads.
100%. So absolutely, and I would say, 98% of the time, yes. The one concern I have is the 2% that said, I never sold stuff when I was little, so maybe I don't have these traits. You probably, for whatever reason, something was restricting you from totally being free. My parents gave me freedom. I was selling stuff from the time I was 6 years old until today. So yes, that's definitely a sign that you're an entrepreneur in the making, when you're just looking at ways to make a buck, even if it's 10 cents selling a cup of lemonade,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So, talk about this passion and this driven, right? You said those 2 things were 2 of the traits. And so do you believe also that, we can debate this, is that you can learn hard work or learn how to be driven over time, or do you believe you're born with that?
Well, I don't think you can teach drive. Okay. So drive, urgency, desire, all the words to describe that. I believe it's in us, and I believe you've exhibited your whole life. So no, I don't think I can teach you to be driven. I think I can motivate a person for about 2 days, so that's the other thing I say. I'm not in the business of motivating people. Put a fork in my eye now if I've got to spend my time motivating people. You're either motivated or you're not. So I can motivate somebody, and it may last upwards of 7 days. But if they are not self-motivated, driven, hard-charging, wanting something really, really bad, so I don't see it, but that's just my humble 2 cents and my experience.
Yeah. I always said in my previous life too, that the toughest thing about leadership was I wanted it more than other people wanted it for themselves.
Exactly.
Right? And
there's something great one of our EOS implementers shared in one of our quarterly meetings, and he said, we work with entrepreneurial companies and their leadership teams. And he said, if you want it more than that leadership team wants it, you just became a consultant, because you're going to be pushing and driving that team. The way it's supposed to work is they want it, and we're just showing them how to get it. And we're just harnessing driven entrepreneurial energy. But to every day say, you can do it. I mean, come on, man, that's a tough road to live.
That's wear you out. That'll wear a man out. So I
Here,
think
here.
too, though, like, again, in transparency and vulnerability here, my first year being a financial advisor, 22, 23 years old, I had a really good first year, but I didn't work real hard, right? Some luck came in, good things happen, right?
Yeah.
The next year, I mean, I should have been fired. My production was so low, so bad, right? Now, looking back, it was the best year I ever had because I learned so much about myself and so much about the world, right? As this young man right out of college. But I think, and I don't say this arrogantly, I think I grew up, playing golf, and I wasn't the best student in the world, but I was just okay at sports, right? I got to play golf at a high level, but I didn't have to work real hard at it. And I wish I did, looking back. And then I come into the business world and I have a great first year. Didn't have to work real hard at it. My whole point to this long story is I had to learn a work ethic, right? Because I think, talent only goes so far, but when you work hard and have talent, it can take you, the sky's the limit, right? So that was, for me, it was a good moment, but I had to learn it, right? I wasn't born with this work ethic, I don't think.
Well, but here's what I would suggest, because I love it, because we are passive aggressively debating each other, so this is good. But here's some additional words that I like to use to describe driven, and I'm guessing you exhibit all of these right here now today. Okay, so I hope I'm going to make this make sense. But when I say driven, I always say internal fire, urgency, competitive, you want to succeed, you're self-motivated, you hustle, and you love working hard. So here's what I would suggest. You sought that work ethic because you're driven. Okay. If you weren't driven, you would not have sought that work ethic. Point one. Point two is,
no, you're 100% right.
Yeah. And listen, when I was studying geography in 10th grade, I was not driven. But when I'm playing chess, when I'm trying to think of all the things that I have no passion for, I show no drive for the things I'm not interested in. If I'm terrible at playing baseball, I'm not going to be very driven at baseball. And so when you find that thing you're passionate about, trust me, if you're a driven person, that drive's going to show up. And it showed up for you for whatever reason. It's always been there, but it showed up for you that year or two after you became a financial advisor.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I knew very early on I wanted to be successful. I don't think I knew at what magnitude or where or why or how. And I think for me, it took that year getting kicked in the teeth and saying, hey, dude, if you want A, B, and C, you got to get to work. Right. And you're right. I did know, it's the old, when you know your why, anyhow is possible. Right.
Exactly.
I started to know my why at that point, what my future I wanted it to look like. And so if I could impress upon anybody listening to this, start with that, right? Start with knowing why am I doing this? Why is Gino trying to help somebody take the entrepreneurial leap? He knows that why, therefore he can go bust through doors and kick down walls and all sorts of things. Right.
Exactly. And, with you, not having that in the first year or two, maybe you were still just having a little bit of fun. The truth of the matter is, while I was doing all those entrepreneurial things, I still wasn't quite ready to hit it super hard until I was 21. And man, between 18 and 21, I had a lot of fun. So I would not be described as being driven between 18 and 21.
Right.
But I knew how much money I was going to make at 25, at 30. I was having a little fun in the meantime.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So when you think about the habits and either in your own life or in all these, thousands and thousands of businesses that are on the EOS side, what are some of the things that, if I followed you around with a camera every day, what are the no miss items that I'm going to see you and other successful entrepreneurs doing every day?
Yeah, that's such a great, interesting question. You're forcing me to pin down a handful. And when I say a handful, I just want to try and get it down to 1, 2, or 3 big things. But there's easily 10. So first I would say you gotta have a goal. Okay. And so when I say a goal, I'm talking about something bigger than, a goal for the quarter, a goal for the year, a goal. So what's your big goal? I mean, they all have, beyond passion, I'm talking about a tangible thing. And the 2 examples I would give is, for the last 20 years, the goal has been, for us EOS implementers, to take 10,000 companies through our EOS process. That's what translates to the 100,000 companies running on EOS. And so we're going to hit that goal by the end of this year. I set that goal 20 years ago. Wow. I had 50 clients at the time. I had 50 and I said, I'm going to have 10,000 20 years from now. And so ironically, hopefully we'll see, but almost to the day, we're going to hit 10,000 on the day I said we'd hit it. So there's a universal power in you saying 10 years from now, I'm going to be this, I'm going to have this, I'm going to do this. And it can only be one goal. Yeah. And so the next 10 years, I've already kind of disclosed it, but the next 10 years, it's to impact 1 million entrepreneurs in the making. So the first point is have a goal, but I'm talking about a big goal. I'm talking about a big goal. And if you sit there and go, I don't know, or I can't think of one, or I don't believe, you need to have a goal. Yeah. There's that universal law that the things just line up and fall into place when you go to bed every night thinking about what you want 10 years from now. So I think that would be number one.
And I can interrupt real quick. I think there's no coincidence that you wrote that down and it's happening almost to the day.
Here, man. Here. And now I want to impact 1 million entrepreneurs in the making. And I think right now I'm at like 25. So I've got some work to do.
But think about that too, is to go public, number one, right? You set the goal, you went public, you're talking about it on this podcast, you're talking about it 1,000 other times this week, right? Yeah. That's a big deal in and of itself. But the other thing is, I think so many people, the old, was it paralysis by analysis?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't say 1 million. How am I going to get there? I don't know how I'm going to get there. You don't know how the hell you're going to get there either.
Yeah, and the early EOS implementers that were with us as Don and I built the company, they laugh because what I would share, because they look back on this, what I would share with them is I would always say, here's the goal, 10,000. And this goes back 15 years ago as we were recruiting EOS implementers. I'd say the goal is 10,000 and I have no idea how we're going to get there, but we're going to figure it out one quarter at a time. And so literally I disclosed to all of our people, we have no idea how we're going to get there. I have no idea how I'm getting to 1 million entrepreneurs in the making, but I'm pretty certain I'm going to. I think about it every night and I'm doing things every day that direct me toward that. But I believe with a 10-year goal and 10-year thinking, you make better decisions, time slows down. There's a peace about that. And what we're doing here today, I'm on this podcast because it's going to help me get to 1 million entrepreneurs in the making.
That's right.
In the next 10 years.
I love it. So again, we kind of got sidetracked there. I apologize. I like to interrupt and dive deep into some of that stuff. But so those habits and rituals. So again, do you have the same morning routine? Is there the same evening routine?
Yeah. So that's why I hesitated, because am I going to give you some big stuff, some little stuff? So so now I gave you a big one. Now I'm going to give you a granular one. I'm going to give you a daily action. Okay.
I love it.
So this I share with people, and the ones that do it, they swear by it. You'll laugh at first, sort of. So it's a double whammy I'm going to give you. And so I live my life from a legal pad. Okay. So it's very important you know that first. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you can do on any technology. And if you want to look cool doing on a tablet, then do it on a tablet. But my trusty yellow legal pad, which is right here in front of me, by the way, it works like this. Every night before you go to bed, you need to know what you're going to do tomorrow. Okay. So do not let your head hit the pillow until you know what you're going to do tomorrow. And so what I do every night before my head hits the pillow is I lay out tomorrow, and I'm laying it out on my legal pad. So literally I'm saying, okay, at 7 a.m. I'm doing this, 8 a.m. So my meetings, my sessions, my calls, my whatever, my projects, they're all laid out. So when my head hits the pillow, I know when I wake up, I'm going to hit the ground running. And the power of that is you will sleep better. It's more peaceful, but also your brain, your subconscious is literally working while you're sleeping. And so it's solving a lot of those things for you tomorrow. You wake up more creative, number one. Number two is when you wake up and hit the ground running, the second discipline with that trusty legal pad or whatever technology you're going to do is to put everything in one place. And so what happens is now you wake up, you hit the ground running, you got a 10-hour day ahead of you, and you have literally made 10 promises, had 3 ideas, jotted down 6 phone numbers, whatever it is, but all day long stuff is coming to you. And the typical wild and crazy hard charging entrepreneur is writing shit everywhere, trying to remember half of it and putting in their phone, put it here, put sticky notes stuck to stuff. Well, you're going to forget half of it and you're letting people down and you're less effective. And so you just, everything like that, you're just writing it down immediately in the same place. And so for me, it's on that legal pad, because now let's pull it all together. At the end of the day, when I'm preparing for the next day, I'm then pulling all of those things off that legal pad and I'm compartmentalizing them. And so some of those calls I need to make tomorrow, or ideas I need to execute. Some I'm just compartmentalizing them. I'm time blocking them into my calendar. And so what's happening is I'm now taking all those things and I'm going to honor every one of those commitments by then putting it in the right place. I don't forget a single thing ever. I never let anyone down ever. And I'm twice as productive by that simple little discipline. So anyway, so that would be
I love that. So we couldn't be any more in line. So I got my 2 black journals. They go everywhere. The rest of them are back there from years and years and years. August of 2005. So this is my journal. So those that listen, a lot of people ask this a lot. So this is my journal where I dream and I think, right? And I put my dreams in this one spot. And it may be, what do I need to do on A, B, and C? And just think about it, right? And then this one is the exact same thing of what you're talking about. Go into here and you can see the lines are already drawn in there, all this stuff. And it's where you work out of, right?
Yeah, and I would just also take advantage of this opportunity, and I would urge your audience to look it up. But the power of writing, the science behind writing, you can't debate it. Okay. And so if you just Google the power of writing, your brain retains more, there's an emotional connection. And so, there's studies done where students sit there and tap away at a laptop. They literally only retain half of what they would if they wrote it. So there's so much power behind writing. That's why I'm so fanatical. And what's kind of cool is technology has caught up where now, you can have a tablet and you can write on a tablet. I'm still not convinced that's as good, but at least technology has met the power of writing.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think too, the gift of, like, for me, and they may not care, they may burn them, right? But when I'm old and gone and my grandkids or great grandkids, they can go back 50, 60, 70 years and see, okay, what were they thinking back then in, August of 2005?
Yeah, it's so funny. And how old are your kids?
14 or not, gosh, 15 yesterday or 2 days ago. So 15, 13, 10, and 6.
All right. So yeah, and mine are 25 and 28. So I've got bad news for you. So I started journaling over 30 years.
They don't care.
With the intention that someday they'll read my journals. I've tried, man. I've tried. So keep your expectations low.
All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I've tried. I'm gonna keep trying. You never know.
Maybe you're not old enough yet. You give me your grandkids that care more, not your kids.
Pick the bucket, then they'll take a look.
That's right. That's right. So talk about goal planning for you. So you talk about your 10-year goal, right? But we all have, whether it's a 90-day goal, a 30-day goal, a 1-year goal. I mean, what's the process you use to really hold yourself and your team accountable to making sure that stuff gets done?
Well, it's something I'm very fanatical about, and it's in EOS and Traction. And it's also in Entrepreneurial Leap. Again, these 2 kind of business worlds of my life. And so, I believe in 10-year, 3-year, 1 year, in the next 90 days. So you'll see that thread through both of these disciplines, both of these teachings. And so we already talked about 10-year, then boil it down to what I like to call a 3-year picture or a 3-year plan. And that doesn't have to, I don't agree with making that so rigid and tangible. It's just a picture. Create a vivid image, a mirage, something your mind can see, and you need to change it every year. So every year, push it out 3 years. Every year, push it out. So you get to revise the whole thing if you want. That's 3 year. 1 year is, okay, now that you're clear on the 10-year, now that you're clear on the 3-year, you need to make it very, very tangible. What do you need to get done in the next 12 months? So here we are in 2020. What needs to get done in 2020? Here we are in 2021. What needs to get done in 2021? Very tangible. I believe 3 to 7 is the magic number for goal setting. And then from there, next 90 days, what has to get done in the next 90 days? Again, 3 to 7 most important things. So that's my goal setting process. That's the process we have 100,000 companies running on. And the process I have thousands of entrepreneurs in the making running on.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal process too. And I think the importance of that is so many of us can get a great business plan and all these goals and dreams and get fired up about it, right? So this is a great time of the year to be doing that. It's October, November, December. let's get planning for 2021. But then what happens, right? There's a lot of people that just put it in the old top drawer of the old desk and they never see it again. And so I think it's the accountability throughout the month and the quarters and the year to help you hit that goal, right?
You're here. But by the way, I want to take advantage of the opportunity to say the other power of 10-year thinking, because there's an entire chapter in Entrepreneurial Leap on 10-year thinking. I've now seen the effect it's had on my life in the last 15 years, but pandemics, financial crises, wars, whatever the thing that's going to kick our ass every 10 years, are a lot less stressful if you'll shift your thinking to 10-year thinking. With all due love and respect, it's just a blip, as cold as that might sound when you shift to 10-year thinking. But if everything in your life is about today, a crisis is going to send you into a death spiral of depression. So,
well, I think too, this pandemic thing, let's talk about that. I mean, it is bad, right? There are a lot of people that have lost their jobs. People have died. It is terrible. But on the flip side, there's two sides to every coin, right? So, but it also can go in, you can talk to the people in your everyday passings of your life and how you doing? Oh man, this, it is how you think about it, right? It's how you spend time thinking about this COVID. I can either choose to participate and think this is absolutely terrible, or I can choose to go out and make a difference in my own life and in other people's lives. And it is a mindset thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Agree? Let me just, since we're on it, when whether this comes off cold or not, I'm just giving a history lesson here. Okay. And the history is very powerful, and so I always talk about 1,000 years of entrepreneurial history. And I'm not going to go into that depth unless you ask me later about the things that change and the things that don't change in 1,000 years of entrepreneurial history that will be the same the next 1,000 years. But what I want to zero in on is something my business mentor, Sam Cupp, taught me. He talked about 10-year business cycles. And he said, Gino, every 10 years, there's a 10-year business cycle. And in business, you're going to have 2 great years every 10 years. You're going to have 6 good years every 10 years. And you're going to have 2 horrific years that will potentially put you out of business. And that's going to repeat itself every 10 years. He taught me that 30 years ago, and that has now held true. And if you look back at history, it's happened every 10 years. And so, listen, the Civil War, 900,000 of us died. World War II, millions. COVID, yes, a couple 100,000 right now. So that's horrible. But listen, in the grand scheme of history, listen, we just aren't that freaking important, with all due love and respect, people. This is just history happening. And shit happens. Viruses come, wars come. Life is hard. And if somebody's out there telling you that this fucking journey is easy, sorry for getting so passionate.
I love it, man. Preach on.
So passionate. There's nothing easy about this thing. So let's stop. We got to toughen up, and we got to survive all these crises, because 10 years from now, another one's coming. If you can't handle this one. So it's horrible, man. Death is horrible, and it's heartbreaking, and it's sad. But if you're thinking in these 10-year timeframes, I mean, it truly is a blip, a challenging blip. But again, going back to my point, if you're just thinking about today, man, you should be curled up in a ball in your house, terrified and thinking about nothing but death, because that's all you are. You have this myopic view of your life. So for what that's worth, just
absolutely love that.
Just a
history. I love that. So I heard somebody really smart one time say something that happened 1,000 years ago is still going to happen today, and is going to happen 1,000 years from now. So what's not going to change?
So I think I might have baited you on that one. But for what this is worth, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, my belief. But if you look back at 1,000 years of history of entrepreneurship, I'm talking about entrepreneurship, in the next 1,000 years, there are things that change and things that don't change. There's 2 of each, okay? And so the things that have changed are products and services. And so products and services are ever changing, evolving, moving. So, 150, 200 years ago, it was buggy whips and beaver pelts and all that good stuff. And the other thing that changes is methods of communication, how we communicate with each other. Okay. And so it was smoke signals 1,000 years ago, and then telegraph and fax machines and Pony Express. And obviously today it's through lots of forms of technology. So those are the 2 things that are ever changing: products and services, and the way you communicate. I'll come back to the point in just a second. The things that never change are that people will always have wants and needs. They are always going to have wants and needs. And number two, you will always have to persuade them. Selling and marketing is never going away. So, so that's the last 1,000 years. Let's sit here today. So sitting here today, products and services are changing real time before our eyes in a pandemic. Okay. So just if you knew that as an entrepreneur, you won't be surprised, because whatever product or service you have tomorrow that's valuable to your customers and clients is going to be irrelevant either one day or 100 years from now, somewhere in that time. It's always going to change. If you know that, you'll stay on your toes and be ready for that change. And the way that you communicate right now, it might be through texting, through email, through whatever it is. That's how you're communicating with your customers and clients. Well, it's going to be very different 10 years from now and 40 years from now. So it's going to change. And so you just need to keep evolving and changing. But again, sitting here today, right now, people have wants and needs. Yep. Your job is to keep your ear to the ground and figure out what they want and need, and you'll adjust to that. And you're going to have to persuade them. You got to market and sell. And so now let's shoot forward to the future. The product or service, who knows what it's going to be? But you might be populating Mars. I don't know. Right. But in how you communicate, we might be communicating through telepathy.
Right.
But 1,000 years from now, whoever is walking this earth is going to have wants and needs, and you're going to have to persuade, market, and sell. And so those are the things that change and don't change. And that, if you understand that as an entrepreneur, there's a peace that comes over you, and you're not so attached to today's current product or service.
Well, and you're right. I mean, you look at the people that didn't change their business models over time. You think of take Blockbuster, right? I just think of that. There used to be one right down the road, and here's somebody that had the world, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're gone, right? And if you don't adapt, you're going to go. So that's amazing. If Elon Musk has anything to do with it, we will be on Mars, right?
Yes, oh, for sure. No, that's why I use that example. And we'll be mining meteors and all kinds of crazy stuff.
So what's Gino Wickman's dreams now? When you think about where you're at today in this life, what's your dreams?
Well, I mean, I think I've already shared it, so it's certainly impacting 1 million entrepreneurs in the making. It's certainly working with my current clients. It's certainly watching and helping EOS Worldwide grow. However, I can do that from afar because, I'm still the EOS guy. I spend a lot of time with friends and family. I'm an introvert, so I'm very passionate about things that are more introverted in nature, but certainly love to travel. So I'm just doing all the stuff that I love and just continuing to make me a better me every single day.
So if I go, I love this question with people, but if I go and I grab your phone here and I delete one app, and it can't be email because you need that for work, and it's kind of boring, but if I deleted one thing off your phone, what are you going to be stressed out about me deleting?
So not much, because I'm not very attached to technology. Okay. So awesome. I never look at email. I don't see my email. Somebody manages all that for me, and they let me know when there's something I need to know. So you could take my email. You just can't take it from my assistant.
Right.
So I have to think hard because I'm not attached to any technology. But what's my favorite thing?
Can I interrupt you real quick? So let's talk about that for a second. So you don't check email?
No.
I love that, right? So I've got a system where I have my assistant, Robin, who's phenomenal. She checks everything as well. And then I have a private account that things go to that I need to see, right? So then, my emails went from 150 a day to, 5 a day now. And so talk to our listeners about that. And they say, I can't wrap my mind around the fact that this dude doesn't check email.
Yeah. Well, so if you're an entrepreneur, you should never check your email. Okay. Because that means you have people, a true entrepreneur. So you have somebody that does that for you. To get trapped in your email is the biggest energy drain on the planet. So you free yourself from that. As an entrepreneur, your mind needs to be free to be creative and have ideas and grow. That's where your time should be spent. And so just like you have your private email that you send it to, I literally get any email that I need to respond to, my assistant will leave me a voicemail. Okay. And so every day at 10:30 and 4 o'clock, she leaves anything that she needs to leave for me. And let's pretend there's 3 emails she wants me to know about or respond to. She gives me a boiled down 7-word version of it. Charlie needs to know how you feel about this. Can you tell Sally yes or no? And then I just simply call her back, leave that in her voicemail, and I'm done checking my emails for the day, which is what it keeps me on the move. I never have to answer her call. So I will check that email I will check that voicemail on my own time, and I will reply to her on my own time. And it's really fast because it's a few things that I can keep in my head, quickly call back and leave that. So I keep moving. I'm typically doing that while I'm driving down the road. So I just, dial in. So anyway, so that's how I stay energized, creative, on the move, and not become prisoner to a laptop. Now, this crazy virtual world that we live in this podcasting life I'm living, this is the only time I'm sitting in front of a laptop is to do a podcast. Yep. or a Zoom call of some sort.
Sure. I love it. So if you could go back and give yourself some feedback, 10, 15 years ago and say, Gino, listen up, man, here's what you need to really know. What would that feedback be?
What age?
15 years. I don't know. How old would you say? You're 50 today?
53.
53. So let's go back to the 35 or 40-year-old Gino.
Well, 34 would be the perfect age because.
All right, let's say 34. That's what I was thinking.
It's what I discovered at 35 that was life-changing. And again, we've talked about it, but I'm going to give a little bonus thing on there. And so the first is 10-year thinking. And so I would tell my 34-year-old, ideally my 18-year-old self, is shift your thinking to 10-year timeframes. If you can think in multi-decade terms, time slows down, you make better decisions, and ironically, you get there faster. The second piece of advice would probably be let your freak flag fly. So just be you, 100% you, all of you in your greatness. Don't apologize for any of your weaknesses, and just fully be yourself.
I love it. Last thing for you, I could go on and on for another hour and a half, 2 hours, but I don't think you want to do that. And our listeners probably don't want a 3.5 hour Gino special. But I think they do, actually. They just
I would never be so presumptuous to think that, man. It's taken me a couple of years to talk about myself like this.
It's hard. Well, you're doing a great job, and you can tell you're a humble man too. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I did not do one single podcast building EOS worldwide, but for some reason for this project, I decided I'm going to talk to the world.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I think too, it's amazing your team, right? Is talk about that for a minute, because I said it was my last question, so I lied. But working, again, I've done this. You're the 197th person I've interviewed, and that's gone on for 3 years, and it's just been amazing. And there's people that do it all on their own, and there's people like you. There's a system, right? And this thing has been a well-oiled machine, from bios to books to you name it. I mean, this book came from you and your team, right? When 3 months ago we scheduled this podcast. And it's amazing to me. And it was almost like a litmus test. Obviously, you don't know if I'm doing it, but like, here's a guy that is walking the walk. Scheduled this, whatever it was, 60 to 90 days ago. Anything in the world could come up. I'm like, this will be interesting. See if this dude really shows up 90 days from now for a podcast with me, right? And I get an email from your team yesterday. Hey, just want to make sure we're on for tomorrow. What do you need? Boom, 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 boom. Here we go, right? Amazing. So I could go on and on about that, but talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So, so you are simply a recipient of the podcast process. So here's how that works. About 3 podcasts in 2 years ago, it's a system. There's nothing new about it. It's a process. With all due love and respect, I had no idea who you were up until about an hour ago. So when you reach out and want to do a podcast, there's a process that I put in place that my team follows to the letter, non-negotiable. And so the first thing they do is they vet you to make sure that you're real and successful, and that this won't be a gross waste of my time. And then from there, it's a bunch of steps. Just like you said, receiving the book, receiving the overview, the confirmation call you got just before this. It's a system. And so for every entrepreneur out there, and kind of everyone else, if you can just systemize everything in your life, it frees up all of your creativity. It's the ultimate freedom. And so this is podcast number 70 for me, right around there. And so the previous 67, all were in the podcast process so that we're all free. So the old Four Seasons quote, you systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. And so this frees you and I up to just be exceptional and creative for our audience here, because all the details were taken care of. So apply that to every single, sessions that I do, phone calls that I have, project. It's all a system.
I love it. Well, check out the book, Entrepreneurial Leap by Gino here. It's phenomenal. You can get it anywhere you get your books. Gino, where can our listeners find more of you, connect, learn from you, learn this EOS system, the Entrepreneurial Leap system, so we can help you hit that goal of helping 1 million entrepreneurials find that leap?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So all things Entrepreneurial Leap are on the website, e-leap.com. You can get the book there. You'll find 9 free tools to help entrepreneurs in the making. And so what I would suggest is the book is written in 3 parts: confirm, glimpse, path. It takes that person on a journey to decide if they have what it takes to become an entrepreneur and how to start a business. So there's a free assessment on there that they can take. And the other thing I would ask is, for anyone out there that has a passion for helping entrepreneurs in the making, I am literally giving them my content to teach. I call that a collaborator. And so if you're interested in becoming a collaborator, there's a collaborator button on the website. You'll learn about how to do it. It's the no money changes hands, no agreements. It's just you to go freely teach people this content and change some lives. It is very much a passion project.
Well, I will be a collaborator, my man.
Awesome, Brett. Really appreciate that.
Hey, thanks so much, Gino, for being on the show. It's been awesome having you.
A pleasure, man. This was a blast.